Good afternoon, and welcome to today's interview. We are thrilled to have Cathie Wood with us, the founder and CEO of ARK Invest, a firm known for its innovative approach to investment in disruptive technologies. Cathie's unique perspective on emerging technologies has made her a key thought leader in areas like artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, Bitcoin, three of the most talked about themes in today's economy. These innovations are reshaping industries and have the potential to fundamentally change the world we live in. Cathie, we're so excited to hear your insights and predictions on where these technologies are headed. Kamco Invest has been investing in artificial intelligence, automation, and technology through a diverse range of exposures, recognizing the transformative potential of these themes in global economic evolution. By actively seeking opportunities across the tech value chain, Kamco Invest is positioning itself to capitalize on the growth and innovation emerging globally. Throughout our conversation today, we'll explore the exciting developments happening in artificial intelligence, from its transformative potential in business and healthcare to the ethical challenges it presents. We'll dive into the ongoing growth of the electric vehicle market, examining how it's evolving and the pivotal role it will play in today's global economy. Finally, we'll discuss Bitcoin, exploring its rise and as both a digital asset and a form of decentralized finance, along with the challenges and opportunities it brings to the financial landscape. Cathie, with your expertise and experience in these subjects, we're looking forward to a deep dive into how these disruptive technologies are interconnecting and influencing the global economy. Your insights will undoubtedly shed light on how investors and industries can best navigate the exciting and complex landscape. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to get started.
Thank you, Faisal. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
We're delighted to have you, and so good to see you after 3 years. I think we had a virtual webinar 3 years ago while we were trying to connect with the world in the era of COVID. So we're so glad that you accepted the invitation, and I'd like to start on a lighter note. Cathie, when we had our first discussion, I asked you a question on what makes Cathie Wood Cathie Wood. Where did it all start? Where did your experiences and where did your interest in technology come from? And you shared with us a brief story from your childhood. May I beg you to repeat that small story again?
Sure. Well, there are a few stories from my childhood, but when I was 7 years old, we were living in England, and my father, when I had just turned 7 years old, he said, "You know, you can do anything you put your mind to." He was an engineer and inspired me greatly because technology really lifted him out of a very difficult life. You know, his passion for technology moved him to the United States, American Air Force, and he became a design engineer. It would not have happened anywhere else.
So let's get to the three subjects that we're here to discuss today. First of all, we'd like to start with AI. As we see AI, robotics, and automation advancing, which industries do you believe will be most disrupted by these technologies in the next decade or so?
Yes, well, we think all industries will, mostly from the productivity angle. We believe that productivity gains coming out of artificial intelligence, especially for knowledge workers, are going to soar. Now, companies that are slow in adopting this new technology are going to face competitive headwinds. If you're talking about specific industries, I think AI, from a revenue point of view, revenue generation point of view, is probably going to impact transportation the most during the next 5 to 10 years. We think that autonomous mobility, or autonomous taxi platforms specifically, are going to scale to a $10 trillion market, which is really saying something in a world that's not even 150 trillion yet. $10 trillion, the entire ecosystem, including China, with the networks. And we would submit that Tesla in the United States will win this winner-take-most opportunity. The networks will get roughly half of that $10 trillion. Then the most profound application of AI, we believe, is going to be in healthcare. And we think that there's a convergence taking place between sequencing technologies, artificial intelligence, and gene therapies like gene editing, which is going to cure diseases. In fact, it already is curing disease, sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia.
May I just change that question a little bit and say which are the industries that are lagging in embracing these changes? Because obviously there are winners and losers, might be by merit of participation or the lack thereof.
Yes, I think that the most bureaucratic industries are probably going to adopt AI a little more slowly. And so you can put into those categories, and maybe I'm influenced by the US, but the government sector, education, which is part of the government sector in many ways, and healthcare. Now, the government sector, interestingly, yesterday, Elon Musk of Tesla and heading up DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, along with Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, suggested that the government ledger should be put on a public blockchain. So if that happened, we'd see incredible transparency, more security, as they're finding a lot of holes in the security, certainly at Treasury in the United States, and arguably more efficiency in a peer-to-peer ecosystem.
But isn't the government sector reaching out to companies like Palantir, for instance, for their services? And that has been the success. We don't know what it is that they actually are providing. Maybe you could shed some light on that, but it seems like they are reaching out for technological solutions.
Yes, I think the defense sector is where that all started. And if you're hearing all the publicity out of our defense sector, it hasn't passed an audit, I think, in 7 years. So it has a long way to go. But in terms of Palantir's role, and this would be true of any large corporation, I think Palantir will do very well in very bureaucratic parts of organizations. It is, and it started in the government sector because our government was beginning to feel that it was lagging behind in AI from a defense and national security point of view. So what Palantir does for the Defense Department and increasingly more of the government, as well as for any corporation, is it gets them ready for the new AI age. It takes a few years to do that. It helps companies and governments really collect far-flung data, clean it up, centralize it, integrate it, map out in excruciating detail work processes. It calls ontologies, and then delivers efficiencies that are astonishing. For example, in the hospital sector here in the Tampa Bay region, Tampa General Hospital adopted Palantir, and it got a taste of it, and now it's going full throttle, realizing that it wants to be on the leading edge of technologies, all kinds of technologies in healthcare. And it is showing the way for other hospitals as well. So if you'll notice, Palantir does not really advertise. This is word of mouth. It's technology word of mouth, much like Tesla. Tesla in the early days did not advertise, and to this day advertises very little, except for maybe on X, Musk's own platform. But I think there's a contagion effect here, a word of mouth, and if we don't get our act together, we risk falling behind. Any corporation is probably thinking that way now.
And how do you see the current economic landscape affecting the pace of technological innovation, particularly in light of potential recessions or tightening monetary policies? Do you think there are certain areas of innovation that will be more resilient to these pressures than others?
Yes, what we often say in answering this question, or in trying to answer the question, is the technologies that will do best are those that have hit escape velocity. So innovation solves problems. AI is solving a lot of problems in terms of making companies more productive and efficient. So we think AI would increase its traction during a downturn as companies try and figure out ways to limit employment growth by increasing productivity. And so AI has hit escape velocity. Others that would be similarly impacted because of AI are healthcare. And education, as I mentioned, as the government dollars dry up, it forces entities, government entities, and corporations to become more efficient. When we started 10 years ago, the 5 technologies around which we centered our research, so robotics, energy storage, AI, blockchain technology, and multiomic sequencing in the life science space, none of them were anywhere near escape velocity. We think because of artificial intelligence, which is helping to bring together technologies, we call it convergence, that more and more of these platforms are beginning to hit escape velocity.
Now, in light of what availed itself over the last 2 weeks, I'd like to ask a couple of questions surrounding DeepSeek, if I may. DeepSeek is poised to revolutionize data analysis and AI-driven insights. How do you see DeepSeek differentiating itself from existing AI platforms like ChatGPT, particularly in terms of its core technology and capabilities? How is this battle rising up? Is it US versus China?
Well, we love competition, and it makes us better. So yes, I do believe China has achieved something significant in DeepSeek, in that it's really in the game and playing at the pace of American acceleration in artificial intelligence. And when I say that, if you look at AI learning curves, which are expressed in terms of cost declines, we have calculated that AI training costs are dropping 75% per year, and AI inference costs are dropping 85 to 95% per year. I guess we've increased from 90 to 95% with DeepSeek. So it's not going to be long before the other AI large language models catch up with these cost declines. What was significant, and I know all of the big tech leaders in the US are lauding DeepSeek for what it accomplished. It was able to optimize its algorithms to perform as well as o1, ChatGPT's o1, for a fraction of the cost. Now, we don't know exactly how much pre-training went into this, but in terms of the $6 million versus 60 to 100 million in the US, the last part of that large language model was built and developed on a high-performance workstation. High-performance workstations use fewer GPUs, obviously, compared to data centers. And so the question is AI starting to move towards the edge? And it's a big question. We see pendulum swings from centralized to decentralized all the time, from mainframes to PCs, from servers in every corporation to the cloud, and now maybe cloud back to workstations. That's the big question here. And the reason it's so big is because of the huge amounts of capital spending flooding into the data center space and to power generation. What if we don't need as much as we once thought? We'll still need a lot, no doubt about it, but companies are priced at the margin. And if there's a little bit of a slowdown in what seemed to be, a freight train coming at us, the markets will react. So that's where I think a lot of the question marks are. In terms of performance, it's right up there with the US large language models. The question is the cost and how much it's moving us towards the edge.
My question would be, well, obviously the cost of innovation has come down significantly. When will the fruits of competition avail itself to the consumer or to the market or to the large corporation? When do you anticipate that will happen?
We think from a productivity point of view, it is already starting to happen. The productivity numbers in the US are surprising on the high side of expectations, and we think AI is part of it. We know that the consumer's aha moment, sort of the iPhone moment, was ChatGPT. And we know that there are a lot of entrepreneurs in their garages now, and we know a lot of them, who are trying to figure out applications, especially those very visible to consumers, like personal agents, shopping agents. I do not like to shop. And so I will be very happy to develop an agent for myself who will go out and just shop the web for me for exactly what I want at the right time in the right place. I think that the consumer applications create a virtuous cycle as ChatGPT excited consumers. Corporations said, oh my gosh, what is this? We need to get into the new age. So I think it'll be a virtuous cycle, consumer, corporations, and so forth.
Now, with the final question I have with regards to AI as a subject, how do you anticipate DeepSeek's adoption in Western markets compared to China, where the government is investing heavily in AI and has its own set of competing technologies? What strategies are in place to overcome regional barriers to adoption in light of trade wars and in light of Trump coming into office?
Yes, it's been very interesting to watch TikTok, for example, President Trump being much more friendly to TikTok than the Biden administration was. It's interesting to see the tariff situation. He has not hit China as hard as Mexico and Canada, initially at least. So I think he's in the mode of negotiating more with China, and TikTok probably is a part of it. When it comes to national security, I think he'll be very tough, just like the Biden administration. And the question is, how much will the U.S. allow DeepSeek to penetrate the U.S. economy? The question is, how can we prevent it? I think your question is, where everything is globalizing. And it's interesting with blockchain technology, we often use the expression, no throat to choke. There's no government oversight. It's just, so that is going global. And there are many applications of blockchain technology with AI. I just have given you the personal agent one, which we think are going to proliferate during the next few years. There is a throat to choke with DeepSeek, and that is a company. And so we shall see how directly the Trump administration goes after DeepSeek. It's interesting, on Amazon's earnings call
after
last
DeepSeek for what?
Oh, sorry.
That's the specific question. What do they have in DeepSeek that they can go after? What are they doing that's different than ChatGPT?
Well, we would say that it's this, are they moving AI to the edge. In terms of what they're actually accomplishing that we can see as consumers and businesses, it's very much the same. I think it was heralded and got so much publicity because it was only $6 million when OpenAI and Anthropic are spending $60 to $100 million and rising for their models. In terms of the data that it's able to collect about US consumers and corporations to the extent they harness DeepSeek, that I think our government will look into as a national security risk. But it was interesting to hear Amazon on its earnings conference call last week, praise DeepSeek and basically they said, we are offering it to our client base. So the administration will have to be very explicit. They have not been, and until they are, our companies who offer services, web services like AWS, are probably going to offer DeepSeek.
Moving on subjects, and now towards electric vehicles, something that I know you're very passionate about, as you stated in your introduction. And more specifically towards Tesla. Tesla has been a leader in the EV space, but competition is growing. In your view, what differentiates Tesla from its competitors? And what will determine its ability to maintain its market leadership as other manufacturers ramp up production?
Yes, I think on the EV side, the competition ramping, we analyze, company by company, and for the most part, for the price point that Tesla offers, it is still very hard to compete if you're looking at the same power and range. And that's because they have chosen a different kind of battery technology. They rode down the consumer electronics battery cost curve as opposed to developing a whole new battery pack system. And that is still serving to their benefit from a ability to lower prices and remain profitable. If other EV companies lowered prices to the same level for the same power and range, they would lose money. So that's the first. But more important now is the move towards autonomous mobility. And Tesla has collected, by orders of magnitude, more data on real world driving miles than all of the other competitors put together. And in AI, the name of the game, and of course, autonomous mobility is the largest AI project in the world, as I mentioned, the name of the game is having the most proprietary data in order to surface those they're called I've forgotten what they're called. They're called edge cases. They're called edge cases. Those accidents that occur very infrequently. Tesla is able to do that while very few other companies would be able to, mostly because they've seen everything. Their cars have seen everything. They've had all kinds of storms around the world. They've seen all kinds of stop signs, which are different in different parts of the world. And so this is giving Tesla an edge in terms of autonomous mobility, which we believe is winner take most. So in the US, if you look at, and you'll see in our Big Ideas 2025, we just put it out last week, and it's on our website, ark-invest.com. In 2014, when we started the company, we listed the companies that were going after autonomy. Only 2 are left from that original 10. Tesla, which was much delayed, and Waymo. This is, of course, in the US, and Waymo. Waymo did go commercial to a very limited extent in 2018 or 19, but it is still geo-fenced wherever it serves customers. Tesla will not be geo-fenced. It doesn't need to be. And we think that's a huge competitive differentiator.
Aren't we seeing Chinese vehicles running after the same technology in terms of autonomous vehicles, or are they just producing electric vehicles? I think Chinese EV manufacturers such as BYD and NIO have become key players in the global market. We're seeing their vehicles over here in the GCC right now. How do you view competition from these Chinese companies, and do you think they will challenge US EV leaders like Tesla?
Yes, so BYD, certainly. I mean, what's interesting
It's
about
a
the
volumes
Tesla
game for
story.
BYD. I think they recently, correct me if I'm wrong, but they did outsell Tesla in terms of the numbers of vehicles, not in terms of revenue generated, probably.
Yes, yes. Yes, BYD definitely has scaled and is creating an excellent EV. Now, as I said, for the same range and power, it would not be the same price point, but they don't need that in China and in many other parts of the world. In the US, we're very demanding in terms of range and power and so forth. The other issue here in the United States for BYD is trade barriers. I'm not a fan of trade barriers. I think Tesla could compete quite well with BYD just as it does in China, even though the price points in China are so much lower. So yes, BYD is just now starting to make noise about autonomous. The company that is copying Tesla's strategy on autonomy much more is XPeng. And so I believe they just dropped radar and LiDAR, just like Tesla has, and have even come out and said, we believe Tesla's strategy is the right strategy. So we're watching them. We're watching XPeng closely. We cannot dismiss BYD for sure. But one of the reasons I think China allowed Tesla in to its country without a local partner is it wanted to reverse engineer everything that Tesla does. And that has done so successfully and helped other local players. We believe it will do the same with autonomy. But we also know that China and Tesla, or Tesla's being allowed to operate or pursue an autonomous strategy in China, perhaps because China will want to reverse that, engineer that as well.
China is probably one of the last, or not the last frontiers, but one of the major frontiers for growth for companies like Tesla. And again, I repeat the question with regards to trade wars. Could we see any retaliatory action against American companies that might include Tesla in these trade wars?
You know, it's interesting. Elon Musk has done a brilliant job of cultivating his relationship, Tesla's relationship with China, and has spent a lot of time there in many cities, gotten to know the mayors. He said the mayors of the cities in China are technology experts, which you will not find in the United States, believe me. So he's cultivated a lot of relationships there. I would say his secret weapon is May Musk, his mother, who is revered in China and spends a lot of time over there. So I think that has forestalled action against Tesla. You never say never. But I also think that being more a part of the Trump administration, he will help that relationship be more of a win-win than a lose-lose. I think that is the strategy that the Trump administration is pursuing. And, you know, it's a little bit, there's an expression way before your time, but Nixon in China. Nixon opened the doors to China because he was allowed to do so by our politicians here in the United States because he was such a hawk on China. Everyone trusted that he would do the right thing. I think there's a little bit of the same thing going on with President Trump as well. And so he knows, as you said, Faisal, that we need China for the global economy to grow. And I think he's a realist. But stay tuned. Anything could happen.
All right, in the interest of time, I hope so. In the interest of time, let's move on to the subject of Bitcoin. And maybe a little bit of a backstory from our last discussion. Bitcoin had peaked at 64,000. It was trading around 30,000 when we spoke, and we questioned the sustainability of Bitcoin, but it has recovered, and it has recovered clearly. Bitcoin has shown remarkable resilience through the market downturns and regulatory scrutiny. What do you attribute to its staying power, and how do you foresee Bitcoin's role in global financial systems in the next 5 years or more?
Yes, I probably mentioned during my last conversation with you, Faisal, that my professor, former professor from USC and friend, Art Laffer, who's well known for the Laffer curve, said to me when we first started looking at Bitcoin in 2014 and 15, he said, and we collaborated with him on our first paper called Bitcoin. Can it serve the three roles of money? He said, when he understood what it was, he said, this is what I've been waiting for since the US closed the gold window in 1971. So that's more than 50 years ago. This, he believes, and we believe, is the first digital, global, private, meaning no government oversight, no throat to choke, decentralized, and perhaps most important, rules-based monetary system in history. That is a very big idea. Now, what's happening is the developed world is adopting Bitcoin from a reserve point of view faster than we expected. US is proposing putting Bitcoin into the Treasury's reserves. Now, of course, El Salvador has done that. We expected emerging markets to really start, but developed world's coming on. So that's very interesting. Also, institutions understand that this is a new asset class. And as fiduciaries, we all need to understand assets that have low correlations, whether we're talking about risk and returns, to other assets. Bitcoin is that. We did a paper called Bitcoin Ringing the Bell for a New Asset Class in 2016. And while the correlations may be a little...
To you, is
Yes?
it a currency or a system? How do you view it specifically?
We view it as a monetary system that involves a currency that over time could be used not only for store of value, but means of exchange. Now, it hasn't worked in El Salvador, and maybe it won't work. So store of value, absolutely. But a monetary system, very importantly, like gold, in some ways, serves that store of value. It's one of the most important roles. But we also think this new asset class is a very important role, and institutions, only now that our SEC has turned more friendly, institutions now are considering allocations to Bitcoin, which we think is the most secure of all of the crypto assets out there. It is backed by the largest computer network in the world. It would be very difficult to hack into it. So you've got not only a monetary system, a new asset class, and a technology. Now, I don't know if Bitcoin would be the right blockchain technology for the government to use if it were going to put all of the government's transactions on the system. Probably wouldn't be, but it could be. Let's see what happens. Of course, Elon has been a fan of the crypto asset Doge, D-O-G-E. That's why he named the government efficiency Doge. So that may have something to do with this. Doge is a fork of Bitcoin, interestingly. And while we believe Bitcoin is the real deal in terms of this global monetary system, you never know what this fork of Bitcoin might accomplish.
And my final question, again on Bitcoin. ARK Invest has a strong position in Bitcoin and blockchain technology. How do you balance the long-term potential of these assets with the short-term market risks, such as volatility, especially as governments around the world increase regulatory scrutiny? Can they flip
Yes.
the switch and turn it off? Is that a real risk to Bitcoin?
Well, it's interesting. As I mentioned, Bitcoin is winning because there is no throat to choke. China shut down Bitcoin. It migrated elsewhere with hardly a hiccup. I think it was in 2017. Now it is receiving more regulatory acceptance, especially in the United States. Remember, our SEC was absolutely hostile to crypto assets of all kind, including Bitcoin, and was driving innovation away from the United States in this space, which of course we thought was terrible. This new administration is embracing it as really the layer of the internet that developers did not build in the early 90s because no one at that time understood that commerce and financial services would take place on the internet. So a country can shut the internet down and deprive its people of the internet. But with a VPN, an individual in one of these countries can, with a wallet, get access to Bitcoin. And if someone comes in and tries to confiscate their assets, to the extent they remember, the code, they won't be giving up their wealth in a tragic situation like that. So I think a lot of more people understand that now, and the wallets are becoming easier to use and access. So we think it will continue to proliferate.
Now, Cathie, before we end the session, is there anything else, any theme, any subject that you feel you're excited about other than these three that you would like to share with us?
Well, we do think robotics is, there are two. Robotics with humanoid robots. We think that a $13 trillion opportunity is brewing, half in the home and half in the industrial world. It is amazing the dexterity now that we're beginning to witness in humanoid robots. Tesla, Figure AI, and other companies are racing towards this opportunity. And if you think about it, what is this opportunity? It's the convergence of three of the major technologies around which we have centered our research: robots, energy storage, and artificial intelligence. Just like autonomous vehicles, humanoid robots are the same three sets of technologies. And then, as I mentioned, and I'll close out, because in terms of profound impacts, the idea that AI is going to be a tool used along with sequencing technologies like single cell sequencing. We have 37 trillion cells in our bodies. Now that we can sequence those cells, the idea that the convergence of sequencing, AI, and gene editing techniques can evolve to cure disease is going to prolong human life and, increase the quality of life for people with 4,000 rare diseases out there. It's probably a lot more than 4,000. We've only identified somewhere between 4,000 and 7,000. And so we think healthcare is going to become much more individualized, personalized, and this is something you heard in the telecom bubble. We weren't ready back then. The technologies weren't ready, and they were way, way, way too costly. Now that sequencing technologies are dropping below $200 for one person, we think that the genomic or the multiomic revolution is ready for prime time.
Cathie, thank you so much for making the time out of your busy schedule. I understand it's very early. What time is it over there?
It's a little after 6:30 in the morning, so
Well, thank you for
very happy
making
to
the
be with you.
time. Thank you for making the time. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Faisal.
We hope to see you here, inshallah, next year.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
We'll try
I
to
would
make it
love
outside
that.
of earnings season. That's what we'll try to do.
Yes. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. I'm locked to my desk during earnings season. So thank you again.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Cathie. Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Bye.